Today's video is not easy for me because I'm going to share with you my drawing from 2009 and it was terrible. Here it is. It's my 2009 drawing and I redid it last week and I'm going to share with you, but don't skip it to the end because along the way I'm going to tell you what I improved and how I improved those things. So if you don't want to miss those tips, stay with me till the end. Of course, the real-time fully narrated tutorial is available on my Patreon. As always, patreon.com/Ece Gurler is the address. Now it's time to see how this turned out last week. I hope there's an improvement. Contouring problem. I learned how not to contour. Like, what does that mean? It means if you draw very distinct lines instead of creating tonal differences, then your drawing will look like caricature, not a realistic drawing. For example, here in my 2009 drawing, you can see all these distinct lines around the eye, around the face, and the clothing parts. They look like caricatures, just like here, right? No 3D or no realism whatsoever. But there is a way, actually there are multiple ways to get rid of that problem. Look at the photo on the right. There are tonal differences, no lines. So here, by holding your pencil from the middle or from the back, creating all these tonal differences will help you a lot so that you will avoid distinct lines. Another thing is, after you create these tonal differences by applying high pressure to low pressure, you can always blend with a tissue or cotton so that it creates this soft tonal differences. Look at the background and the cheek. So there is no line there, but there's a tonal transition, a very distinct transition that it looks like a line. So this is how we create a natural look. Here you see the jacket and the blouse are both very dark tones, but they are different. This is why our eyes can detect them. Now I want you to take your attention to her arm and his jacket, how her arm casts a shadow on his jacket, and even though there's no line, I didn't draw a line there, but how it looks like a line. I created those by just applying different shades of gray. Missing midtones. Honestly, in time, I learned adding more and more midtones and the importance of them. In 2009, when I was just a student, you can see that I lacked midtones. But on the left, when you look at the reference photo, you see there are so many midtones. I see the grades of HB, 2B, and even 5B. But I only used one pencil on the right. How can we solve this problem? Let me show you. In order to create midtones, you have to draw first different tones and you have to blend them. As you blend, you will see that they will have a more natural transition and that will create even more midtones. Afterwards, using your kneaded eraser, you can give all these highlights and that will even create more transition between the midtones. So in order to create the midtones, you have to not only draw, but also blend and erase, and you have to do this in multiple layers. Just like in the neck area too, you see that I created all these first shadows and then I blended them out, and once I blended them out, you can see that the midtones already have been created. Being afraid of the teeth. Okay, what does that mean? What I mean is running away from the difficult parts of the portrait. You see that I drew no teeth at all here. I mean, almost. And the reason is because they are scary. They're scary to draw. And I knew that, so I avoided it. Don't avoid and challenge yourself, guys. Just don't avoid these difficult parts. And in time, I learned how to draw teeth by watching other artists. And of course, after watching other artists in time, I created my own style. So while drawing the mouth, there are many compartments, right? There are lips, there is the gum, there are teeth. You have to create different shades for each compartment. The teeth will have the widest parts, and for that, you need to use your eraser as well. Once you add those shadows that your teeth cast on each other, and the blackness of the mouth cavity, and the different shades of the gum and the lips, then boom, you will have a very realistic 3D looking mouth. And it's not gonna look like vampires. So it is a combination of drawing with different shades of gray, using your eraser pencil, and of course using a sharp blending tool such as blending stump or a Q-tip. Being afraid of going dark, which translates into being afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid of making mistakes because this is how we learn, right? And going dark in your drawings will create much more depth. Here on the left, you see the darkest points, but you don't see those dark points in my 2009 drawing. And what did I do? I created those dark areas with charcoal, because charcoal gives a really nice black and the darkest gray shade that you can find in comparison to graphite, of course. Here you see that they were wearing really dark clothes, and in order to give that, I used charcoal dust. I applied with my brush, and then also I blended them with my fingers. Applying those dark colors were not that scary anymore for me because I had more confidence in me that if something goes wrong, I can always erase them and start from scratch. His ear on the right was completely black, for example, and the part of the jacket was really dark, and also she had some dark parts in her hair and also her mouth and her clothing. So adding those details, I think, gave so much 3D effect to my drawing. Not being afraid and using those dark shadows also created this depth in my drawing, and now they look more realistic because of that. Learning the supplies. Getting to know your supplies really help you and gives you expertise. Where do you use charcoal? Where should you use kneaded eraser or stick eraser? Or, as you can see, the white gel pen. Where do we use those things? In time, you learn and you become experts on them. Here, because this drawing was really small, I couldn't create the reflections with my eraser, so I used my white gel pen. And I think it makes a great difference. Or adding those highlights in the hair with your stick eraser, or using a Q-tip for the small areas, softening all these creases or wrinkles with your Q-tip. These are the things that you learn in time. And especially for the chin, neck, cheeks, and the forehead area, you use kneaded eraser to give a natural looking highlight. And just these kind of information just comes in time and practice. Finally, I want to talk about patience. I was very impatient when I was a student in 2009, and you can see that in my drawing in 2009. Although I spent maybe 3 hours on that, you couldn't tell that by looking at that drawing. The reason is that every day I was drawing a little, but I was getting frustrated because I wanted to see the result as soon as possible so that I could get over with it because I was so anxious. But in time, I learned the joy of drawing. Instead of enjoying the final result, now I'm enjoying the process even more. And this is the result. This is the difference between 2009 and 2021. By getting to know my supplies, learning all these different techniques, and finding ways to be more patient, as you can see, I have improved a lot. As a teacher now, I love teaching my students what I learned. If you want the real-time, fully narrated tutorial of this, it is available on my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler. Let's move on to the next one. Thanks for watching my video. If you like my videos, please don't forget to subscribe. And for my real-time narrated tutorials, visit my Patreon, patreon.com/Ece Gurler. Stay with art and love.